Welcome to another video. Today, we will be discussing about the user interface of Photoshop. Apart from that, we will also be discussing the ways on how to open pictures in Photoshop because we will need to open a lot of pictures when editing. Okay, so let's dive right in. So, what we're seeing on the screen right now is the user interface of Photoshop. Here, on this side, we have the layers panel, and on the other side, we have the toolbar. Okay, so these two, the layers panel and the toolbar, are two of the most important parts of Photoshop because whenever we edit something, they are almost always involved. And we cannot really do anything in Photoshop if either or both of them are closed. Okay, so before we proceed even further, I'd like to demonstrate this to you first. So if we click this here on top and we drag it, it will become a floating panel. And when something is floating, it means that you can bring it anywhere. However, the downside to it is that it obscures part of our workstation, and that can be annoying when we're editing. Okay, so now we can also do the same for the toolbar. So we click and drag, and we now have a floating toolbar. Okay, so now, assuming that by accident or for whatever reason, we were able to close the layers panel and also the toolbar, how do we activate them again? How do we open them again? So in order for us to open the layers panel, we go to the window tab and we look for layers. Okay, so as you can see here, you can also just simply press F7 on your keyboard. You can do whichever is convenient to you. But in my case, what I normally do is I go to the window tab and manually look for the layers panel because that is what I'm used to doing. Okay? Now, we do the same for the toolbar. We go to the window tab and we look for tools. Okay? So as you can see, we've opened both the layers panel and the toolbar. However, as I mentioned earlier, they are obscuring our view. So it is best that we reincorporate them again into the user interface. And how do we do that? We just simply click and drag and bring it here. So as you can see, a blue highlight appears. And this blue highlight is an indication that we can already release our clip, and that once we release it, it will once again become part of the user interface. Okay, so now let's do the same for the toolbar. Let's click and drag it to the side. So here's the blue highlight, which tells us that we can release it. Okay, so I demonstrate this to you this early because when I was still learning Photoshop, I had the experience of closing the layers panel by accident. And since I didn't know much about Photoshop then, it took me about 3 days before I was able to figure out how to open the layers panel again, which means my learning got stalled for 3 days. But it doesn't really matter now because it was like 6 years ago. Okay? But since I already demonstrated it to you, you already know what to do, right? Okay, so that's that. Okay, now we proceed to our discussion on how to open pictures in Photoshop. So there are 3 ways that we can use to open pictures in Photoshop. First, we can simply go to the File tab and select Open. And then we'd normally look for the picture we would like to open. Okay, like say for example, this picture right here. Let me just double click this. As you can see, we've opened the picture. Okay, so next, the second way is by clicking and dragging the picture to Photoshop. So for example, this picture right here, let me just click and drag this, and when we drag it way past our canvas, somewhere here on top, and not directly onto the canvas. Okay, so notice that our cursor has changed, so that is an indication that we can already release a clip and it will open it as a new file. Okay, but the question is, why do we need to drag it on top and not directly onto our canvas? Well, because if we directly drag it onto our canvas, then the picture is opened as a smart object. And if it is opened as a smart object, then some tools won't be readily available to edit it. such as the paintbrush tool, the eraser tool, etc. because the layer still needs to be rasterized before we can paint on it or erase parts of it. Okay, and that is the difference. If we drag it directly onto our canvas, the picture is opened as a smart object. But if we drag it way past our canvas, somewhere on top, then the picture is opened as a raster image, and all tools will be available for use to edit it. Okay, but what do we mean by rasterizing the layer? Well, I will have an in-depth tutorial about raster and vector images in the coming days. Please watch out for it because it will be very informative. Okay, but for now, let's go back to our lesson. Just a little review. The first way to open pictures is by going to the File tab and selecting Open. Okay, so the second way is by clicking and dragging the picture to Photoshop. But we can only use the second way if Photoshop is already open. Okay, so what if Photoshop isn't open yet? What do? We use the third way. The third way is by right-clicking on the picture and selecting Open With, then Photoshop. That is if Photoshop is already in the options like I have here. But if this isn't available, then you select Choose Another App, then look for Photoshop. As you can see, we have opened the picture. Okay, so now I'd like to discuss how we can transfer objects from one file to another. So say for example, we want to transfer this layer to another canvas. Okay, then we need to make this a floating panel. Okay, so as you can see, this is now floating. Next, we need to click the destination file just so it is the one active or visible. Once we've clicked that, we then select the Move tool. Okay, after that, we need to make sure that the object is selected in the Layers panel. Now, it is selected already because it is the only layer in this file. But if you have many layers here, then you'd have to select the particular layer that you want to transfer. Okay, so once selected, you can then click and drag the object towards the other canvas like this. As you can see, when I brought it here, a white highlight appeared, which indicated that we can already release our click, and that when we release it, it will be transferred to this file. Okay, so now let me release the click. As you can see, we've successfully transferred the object from this file to this file. Okay, and what do we do with this one? Now that we have transferred the layer, we can either close this or we can bring it back to where it was by clicking and dragging like this. So let me just check this file. So as you can see, the layer is already here because we have transferred it. Okay, so I think that ends this video. In my next video, I will be discussing about the Layers panel. Please consider subscribing to my channel and click the notification bell so you get updated whenever I post new content. Thanks for watching.